Good morning to everyone. It's well, for almost all the state, it's a gorgeous morning out there. Temps in the 50s. Nice. Well, very pleasant to be outside. If you haven't had a chance, well, that and the mosquitoes, if you could bat those off. But the weather is certainly doing its job here today. But we do have some changes coming up in the near future here. I'm going to start by looking though at the last week. And in terms of temperatures, our week turned out to be really close to normal. On the left-hand side here, you can see that the vast majority of the state within a degree Fahrenheit of normal. A little couple spots here and there, a little bit above that, a couple below, but in generally very close to the means of where we should be for this time of year. Probably the more interesting or more important issue here again was water and precipitation totals for the last week. This is as of yesterday morning, but two areas once again received significant rainfall, notably the northern lower, especially the northwestern lower. You can see that here. The yellow color depicts areas which had at least 2 inches of rain, some cases more than that. Another spot down here in the south, including the southeastern part of lower Michigan, also picked up some heavy rain, some cases more than 3 inches. Of course, that comes on the heels of earlier heavy rain, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment here, but some really impressive rainfall totals that have occurred in just the last few weeks. Degree day totals, looking at this just really briefly, we're pretty close to where we were last week. These are the actual totals here as of the 20th of July on the left-hand side, not too far away from the normal, but in general, relative to climatology, we're running in most areas about 50 to 150 base 50 units ahead of normal. And this is the seasonal total beginning on May 1. So if you planted before that or after it need to adjust a little bit accordingly, but we're still have a little bit of a surplus. So we have had that for the last couple of weeks. It's very similar, pretty similar to where we've been. I mentioned the precipitation over the last 30 days. On the left-hand side here, these are observed totals from the middle of June through earlier this week. And the colors we don't see very often on this map here, but much of lower Michigan and portions of upper Michigan, at least 5 inches, some cases more than 10 inches. That's this pink color down here at the bottom. Those are huge amounts. For some reference, June is climatologically in many parts of the state, the majority, it's the wettest month climatologically we have in Michigan. And for that month, that wettest month, the totals, average totals range from a little bit less than 3 inches in the far northeastern sections of the state to a little bit less than 4 inches down in the southwest corner. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. But again, to have 10 inches, some cases 12 inches of precipitation for a 30-day period is pretty impressive. If this were a month, we would have set some new records for wettest on record. On the right-hand side here, these are departures from normal. Lots of purples and pinks here. Again, many spots at least 6 inches above normal. And of course, the crazy part of this is if we look at the averages at many spots, especially across the southern half of lower Michigan, the total relative to where we should be for this time of the year, this is an accumulated value beginning on the 1st of January through earlier this week. And the values are pretty close to normal where they should be. But of course, we've been anything but normal. We were way too dry for a long time. And then this is for Kalamazoo, which is relatively typical of the southern lower. You can see this period in here during the latter half of June, and then most recently when we were inundated with heavy rain, several repeated days of heavy rain, and made up huge deficits, which is really hard to do, but it did happen this year in many spots with a couple of exceptions. But most of the state, we went from, again, what was moderate or severe drought to excess and even some flooding here in a very rapid time. And that again, just does not happen very often. As a result of this, our soil moisture and vegetation conditions currently here, they're actually in many spots are fairly close to maybe even a little bit better than normal. On the right-hand side here, this is plant available moisture in the top 3 feet. The brown colors indicate that these are expressed in terms of percentiles and would suggest that we're a little bit behind normal, but you can see there's many areas here that have a little bit of a light green. That's actually, so we're a little bit better than we typically are relative to history. On the left-hand side, though, this is an index of vegetation health and basically in terms of water status. And the areas that have yellow and brown suggest that there's a little bit of some moisture stress occurring. The areas here of note that are a little bit different, the thumb, that's one of the drier areas of the state right now, and increasing areas of western upper Michigan, which is where dryness has developed here more recently over the last several weeks. Those right now are probably the driest areas. And then in terms of what a difference a month makes, this is the U.S. Drought Monitor here on the left-hand side from the middle of June versus the current version here on the right. And you can see the loss of colors, the major changes. Again, something we don't see very often. In the middle of June, 30% of the state was rated in D2 severe drought conditions. That was when it really peaked. But on the right-hand side here, currently, we now are down to 5%. And the driest areas, again, as identified here by Drought Monitor, once again, in the thumb and then portions of upper Michigan. So that'll be something to keep an eye on over the next few weeks. In terms of where we're headed here, a little more of the same. I think that's the theme here. This is the upper air forecast for next Tuesday morning, early next week. That big ridge that's been parked over western and central sections of North America, it seems like forever, and is the reason behind all of the heat and dryness and drought and fires, you name it, many problems in the western part of North America right now. It's still projected to be there. It's a tricky forecast, though, for Michigan here, because depending on where the axis of this ridge ends up. If it stays out west, we're likely the most of the heat and dryness will remain with it. We could actually be closer to normal in terms of our temperatures and certainly more normal in terms of precipitation. However, if that axis shifts a little bit further to the east and actually we get subsidence underneath that ridge, it should lead to warmer and drier than normal conditions. So the medium range forecast, I think it's a little bit tricky, a little bit less confidence right now, depending on where that ends up. And you'll see that theme in the forecast. But for the short term here, we do have the next weather system approaching from the west. It's a sort of a diffuse area of low pressure out over the northern plains. You can see a warm front here. It's going to very slowly make its way towards Michigan here over the next 1 to 2 days. Ultimately, we will get into that air. And the reason I bring it up is because the air behind this is hot and dry, smoke from all the western wildfires. And right now we have Canadian air over the region, but its days are numbered. It will be departing off to the east, and ultimately we will get into some of that warmer air, but not the same type of heat that has been observed in areas west, but it will be noticeably warmer here by this weekend and into early next week. In terms of precipitation, we will be dry, fair and dry, another nice day over most of the state, exception up in the western part of upper Michigan, and we will see the chance for showers and thunderstorms begin later on today during the day, the afternoon especially, and then spread south and eastward here overnight into the early morning hours tomorrow. So that's the first wave or chance for precipitation that we'll be looking at. It is not going to be a widespread type of precipitation event, more spotty, 30-40% type or less chances for precipitation. And if you get precip on the order maybe of 1/4 of an inch or so. So not a big precipitation producer. By tomorrow, you can see not a lot of change, still some of the leftover remnants from overnight convection here down in the south, but the front gets a little bit closer. And then finally, by Saturday morning, we have things shift to the east. So the second major wave of precipitation, and I think the best chance for rain here, at least over the next several days, will come late on Friday, starting in the northern and northwestern part of the state, and once again spreading to the south and east overnight into Saturday, and then ultimately ending late Saturday into early Sunday before everything pushes off to the east. So two major chances or threats for precipitation. Best odds for rainfall will be across northern parts of the state and decrease as you go south. In terms of the totals or the amounts here, about 1/2 inch or so in the far south where rainfall coverage and amounts will be lower to 3/4 to an inch, maybe even a few spots do better than that across northern Michigan, especially the UP and into the northern lower. So again, a difference by location. And for some spots, it will be below normal. Some spots, it'll be a little bit above normal. But best chances really here are over the next 48 hours or so. Potential evapotranspiration rates here for the upcoming week, a little bit above normal, because we are looking at, after today, we'll see temperatures once again in the upper 70s to near 80. We will see warming, though, occur as that warm air approaches and back up into into the 80s by Saturday, maybe even some spots pushing 90 by Sunday, and then continue at above normal levels into early next week. With those above normal temperatures, we'll see above normal water demand. And so our rates here generally ranging from about 0.17 to almost 0.2 of an inch. And again, that's a little bit above normal for late July. Medium range forecast guidance, you would think, I keep putting the same map up here every week. It seems like it, but for the forecast jet stream, both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks are very similar. Here's that ridge, not going anywhere, but there is some movement along it. And again, depending on how far east or west it is, will have a huge impact on our weather here in Michigan. But overall, given this forecast, still the medium range still suggests above normal mean temperatures, and then normal, maybe a little bit below normal or drier than normal conditions in terms of precip. Especially for the precip, I would put a question mark on this. I don't have a lot of high confidence. Really, I think also, even though this says above normal mean temperatures, there will be periods here like yesterday and today where we actually dip below normal because we are close to that northwesterly branch or that part of the polar jet stream. Occasionally we'll get a cold front that will drop through here and through Michigan and cool us off at least for a couple days. So it says above normal, but I think there will be breaks in that type of a weather pattern. And then finally, we did get a new long lead ensemble of outlooks here for the remainder of the summer and into the fall. And no surprises, this is very similar to what we have seen over the last couple months. Both the outlook for August, which is on the top, the upper left here, mean temperatures, suggesting warmer than normal mean temperatures for the month of August, and then the EC or equal chances category, so no direction, forecast direction on precip, but note that there are areas forecast to be drier than normal to our west and wetter than normal to the south and east. We've seen that same pattern here for the last couple of months, and then very similar also for the 3-month outlook, August through October. So the remainder of the summer into the early part of the fall, very, very similar conditions there. That's been consistent. One last thing, there's an increasing likelihood of a repeat or a return of La Nina conditions in the Equatorial Pacific later this year, this fall, possibly this winter. That will have very little or no impact or influence on our weather right now, but it could for the upcoming winter. We'll talk more about that as the season progresses. Again, we had a La Nina event last year. It at least appeared to have very, very little influence on our overwinter weather, which is typically when we see a link or an association. So, but that's sort of the talk right now in terms of the very long lead outlooks is maybe a return of La Nina. So that's something we'll be monitoring. And with that, I'll wrap up here again, a very summer-like pattern coming up here for the next few days. Best chances for precip, especially overnights Friday into Saturday. Definitely warmer and drier for the end of the weekend, early next week. Next chance for precip after Saturday comes by the middle of next week, probably by about Wednesday. It looks like there'll be at least 1, if not 2 chances of rain the latter part of next week. And as you saw in the medium range and long range forecast here, the big theme there was certainly towards warmer than normal mean temperatures. And with that, I'll wrap up and introduce next week's speaker for our virtual breakfast, and that's Dr. Matt Gammons of MSU's Department of Ag, Food, and Resource Economics. Matt's a relatively new person here with our extension faculty and staff on campus, and he's going to be talking about pricing corn, soybeans, and wheat. Good timing for that, so join us next Thursday morning here for our next virtual breakfast. And with that, I'm going to hand off back to Bruce and to Phil. Thanks.